Well folks, this is fine, everything's okay, don't worry about it. No, seriously, nothing to worry about. I just wanted to draw your attention to one of my favorite internet memes of all time. The famous comic strip created by the super talented cartoonist Casey Green, which is a quirky illustration of a dog sitting in a room lit on fire, totally cool, calm and collected, which is just so funny and so silly and so ridiculous and so bound to trigger an existential crisis within oneself and question the meaning of life as we know it. So one day I was looking at this meme, straight out staring at it and thinking to myself, boy, wouldn't it be cool to turn this meme into a fully functional video game? And so right then and there I decided that I would devote the next 4 months of my life to turn this meme into a fully functional, production-ready video game. And so 4 months later I am excited to introduce to you folks, This Is Fine, the game. And by the way folks, I encourage you all to try this game on your own. It's totally free and available on iOS and Android devices. Just head out to thisisfinegame.com, get yourself a copy and start playing. Oh, and if you manage to successfully complete this game, I encourage you all to share your high score on social media. And if you're on X or Instagram, be sure to tag me at Andres_who. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on the game. This has by far been the biggest game project I have made. Although the game itself is quite tiny, I put a lot of time and effort into perfecting every aspect of this project, including character modeling, animation, programming, level design, UI design, sound design, and game feel. Because in the end I wanted to ship out a game that would look and feel truly production ready. And in this video I want to go in a bit more detail on how I got this game project off the ground, how I built the entire game from scratch, what kind of interesting challenges I faced along the way, and also provide some tips for all you indie game devs out there for your own projects. So with that said, let's get into it. To start off, I want to acknowledge that this game, in all essence, is just a fan art project. I want to stress that this meme and the comic and the dog featured in the comic, whose actual character name is Question Hound by the way, all of this is the beautiful work done by the amazing cartoonist Casey Green. If you want to support Casey, go check out his personal website for more fun comics he's made throughout the years, and there's also an official This Is Fine merch shop, which is just so full of so many awesome goodies. And although most of the elements in the game, including the actual Question Hound 3D model, were made by myself, I do want to be respectful of the fact that this game and everything inside of it is heavily inspired by Casey Green's work, which I cannot take ownership of. So early in the process, I made the conscious decision to make this game fully non-commercial. This game is totally free, there are no hidden in-app purchases or anything like that. My goal with this project is solely to spread joy and laughter to anyone who plays it, and to show my appreciation for all the awesome work made by Casey Green, which has given us so much joy throughout the years. One thing I do want to mention though, although this game is free, there are some hidden recurring costs associated with keeping this project afloat. You gotta pay $99 a year for your Apple Store developer license, as well as $25 a year for your Google Play Store developer license. And I also host a special dedicated landing page for this game, which also has a hosting cost associated with it. So the only thing I would ask of you is this: if you want to support this project and my work in general, please consider donating whatever you see fit by going to thisisfinegame.com. This will greatly help me ease the burden of recurring maintenance fees. But if you don't, that's totally fine, don't worry about it. And so with that said, I want to move on to the next point that I want to acknowledge. The idea of turning this particular meme into a video game is by no means original. In fact, there are folks who have already created their own versions of a This Is Fine video game. I especially want to give a shout out to Nick Kamen, who was the first one to bring this meme to life with his beautiful pixel art adaptation. Nick's game is very heartwarming and sweet and conveys a beautiful message of friendship and love. It's definitely worth checking out his version of the game. I'll post a link to it in the description down below. Nick's game is one of 3 This Is Fine adaptations that I managed to find on the popular indie game dev site itch.io, and is definitely the best one, but it's worth mentioning the other 2. So the second one is kind of a puzzle game version of this meme, where you navigate the dog through the fire on a 2D grid by enticing him to chase wooden sticks. And the third one is a 3D version, which apparently was created by a bunch of devs during a game jam, and unfortunately, since it's only available on Windows, I was not able to play it. Because I have to admit shamelessly that I'm an ultimate Apple fanboy, and that's why I do not have access to an actual PC to download the game and try it out. Sorry about that. But according to the screenshots, it does look like in this version the dog is stranded on some kind of an island on fire, and you have to use your breath to blow out all the fires. So although there have been already at least 3 versions of game adaptations of this particular meme, none of these versions really correspond to the way I imagined this game to be. In my mind, I always envisioned the game adaptation of this meme to have more of an arcade style to it, which would be fast-paced and hectic and stressful and fun and goofy with quirky animations, kind of something similar to Crash Bandicoot. So that's why I believe that just like iconic characters like for example the Joker from DC Comics have many adaptations, all different in style and taste, surely an iconic character like Casey Green's The Question Hound also deserves a lot of adaptations, all different in style and taste as well. So with that in mind, I set out on a journey to create the game adaptation that I had always envisioned for this popular meme. So now I want to talk a little bit about the development process itself. First of all, I had to figure out what the gameplay would actually look like. For me, looking at the meme itself, it was clear from the beginning what that would be. We have a main character, the dog, a main obstacle, the fire, and a main tool for dealing with the obstacles, the coffee cup. So for me it was apparent that the gameplay would involve the dog running around his house, frantically trying to put out all the fires, using nothing but his cups of coffee. For me, this seemed like a very cute, very funny and ridiculous concept that would surely be fun to play. So with that in mind, it was time to start building the project. As with all my game projects, I always start by trying to create the main character itself. I actually found this 3D adaptation of the This Is Fine meme on Sketchfab by the artist Slow-Mo Witch. I was so inspired by how well Slow-Mo Witch had recreated the character, so this ended up serving as my main inspiration to recreate the famous dog. One thing I absolutely love about creating 3D cartoon characters is that essentially they are usually composed of simple geometry objects, so you don't have to be a super skilled 3D modeler to pull off a good-looking and cute 3D cartoon character. Plus, since the dog's arms and legs are just a bunch of hot dog shapes, I didn't even have to model complicated hand or feet geometry. The simplicity of the object's geometry also meant that I could create funny and goofy animations to go along with the model. I had to make a total of 15 animations for the character for the gameplay I had intended. And in the end, I was pretty satisfied with the result. Before putting the actual level design in place, I created a little demo playground where I could test and fine-tune the navigation and the way the dog grabs and throws the cups. I spent a lot of time making sure that the sliding, the brakes, the turning motion, and the navigation itself was both fun and challenging for the player. By the way, Unity's ability to have different animation layers correspond to different parts of the body is just game-changing. This meant that I could create complex animation mechanics by letting different parts of the body play different animations. So for example, combining the grabbing animation with the movement animation meant that the grabbing part of the animation worked for both running as well as for the idle pose. This is a super useful feature I recommend everyone use when setting up animations for their own characters. Once the navigation and the game mechanic was thoroughly tested, it was time to start putting together the level design. I started with the opening sequence. I wanted the opening sequence to resemble the actual meme as much as possible. And once the player starts playing the game, we see the dog's full house slowly revealed. You get to see where he actually lives. You get to see his kitchen, his living room, his bedroom corner, and his washroom. I made the conscious decision to make the camera position static as it follows the dog around the house. This meant that I could not have any perpendicular walls, as this would interfere with the camera movement. But I really like this style of camera motion. I did something similar in my last game project, recreating Jackie Chan's Stuntmaster, and since I liked it so much, I decided to have the same camera mechanic in this game as well. Now I do have to say, since I wanted to speed up the development process as much as possible, I didn't have time to model the furniture pieces in the level. So most furniture items are actually borrowed from various Creative Commons licensed 3D models that I could find from sites like Sketchfab and CG Trader. I made sure to include all the models used in this game in the credits screen. Additionally, there are 3 Unity Asset Store assets that really helped bring this game to life. One was the stylized 3D fire effects pack. Since I'm not good at designing particle effects, these fires were perfect for my use case. Not only do they look good, but they are also very optimized, which means I was able to run them on mobile devices without slowing down the frame rate. The second one was an off-screen target indicator, which helps you show in which direction the nearby fires and coffee mugs are located when you're playing the game. This asset is absolutely amazing. It was so easy to set up and modify, plus it's totally free. And the third one is such a cool asset that I recommend everyone use in their games. It's called Feel, and it helps you set up great animations and feedbacks of any kind for your gameplay, which really helps elevate your game to the next level by adding a great game feel to it. I used it extensively to animate all the scale-up animations for different UI elements, amongst other use cases. Also, a fun fact is that all the voice acting for the dog itself was done by my wife. And another fun fact, I don't know if this is easily noticeable in the game, but when you look at it, the entire game consists of only one single Unity scene. Everything in the game, the menus, the UI, the different game states are just one big single scene. Because I didn't want to write additional code to reset all the parameters and all the game states when the player finishes the level, I thought it would just be easier to restart the whole scene using just this simple line of code. And to my surprise, it worked wonderfully. The scene has a well-defined closed game loop, it has all the UI panels and game elements contained in it, and it all works perfectly. At the time of this recording, the year is 2023, and this year has truly been the year of AI. So I think an important question I need to address is, how much generative AI did I use in my game? And honestly, it wasn't that much. I only used ChatGPT in some areas to help me figure out how to write code for some complicated game mechanics. Like for example, I wanted it to explain how can I achieve this effect of triggering a particle system when the dog takes a sharp turn to the other side. And for small technical challenges like this one, ChatGPT really helped a lot. But I did not use any AI for making the art in the game. I'm sure you heard that Steam recently announced that they would not allow publishing games on their platform that would contain AI elements in them. And quite frankly, I totally respect this decision, although I didn't launch my game on Steam. I do want to abide by this rule for this project out of respect for all the artists out there whose jobs might be threatened by the use of generative AI. Lastly, I want to talk about a crucial technical challenge that I faced, so you don't have to make the same mistake in your own games. First of all, if you're planning to ship your game to mobile platforms like iOS or Android, then do not, and I'm going to repeat this, do not use the universal render pipeline. Here's what happened to me. I switched to the universal render pipeline because of the ability to create cool looking custom post-processing effects, like for example the ability to utilize the scriptable render pipeline to apply multiple custom toon shaders to give your game a truly unique look. And while I was developing the game, I was testing it on my super powerful iPhone 14, on which the game ran effortlessly at 60 frames per second. I was almost done with the project when I suddenly decided to try it out on an Android, on an older Samsung Galaxy device, and the performance on the Android device was just horrible. It was struggling most of the time to get past 20 frames per second, and it was constantly running on 99% usage because it was waiting on a process called semaphore.waitForSignal. Unfortunately, this wait for signal process doesn't really reveal what the underlying cause of it is. After heavy research, all I could deduct was the fact that something related to graphics was clogging up the thread. It could be a highly resource-intensive shader or a particle system that is not optimized, so I tried switching all that off. I even replaced all the materials with basic default materials to see if one of the shaders was to blame. None of these solutions seemed to work. Then I found a comment somewhere in the Unity forums claiming that the universal render pipeline is in general highly resource intensive on mobile devices. So for mobile games, the best option would be to use the built-in render pipeline. So that's what I ended up doing. I reverted the whole project back to the built-in render pipeline, and this meant that I also needed to convert most of the toon shaders back to the format supported by the built-in render pipeline. This took up a lot of time, but in the end it was worth it because after doing so, I was able to run the game even on my not so powerful Android device without major frame rate drops. So the moral of this story is, if you're planning to make a mobile game and you want this game to run smoothly on older devices as well, do not use the universal render pipeline. I learned that the hard way. But despite this hurdle, I did manage to get this game to a production-ready state, and now it's available on both Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So head out to one of those stores, download the game for free, and try it out for yourself. For me, it's now been over 2 years of learning Unity, and so far I have been able to produce 4 major projects, but only one of which is truly production ready, this final one. And I have to admit, it took a lot of time to finish the game. And it wasn't even the gameplay itself. I think I had the gameplay itself ready a month ago. And in the last month of the development, I just kept polishing the final touches to roll it out. I was surprised by how much time it would take me to set up all the UI elements, to add all the sounds and all the things around the actual game itself. Having said that, after this last project, I will probably take a little break from game dev for a while to focus on different creative aspects that I'm also passionate about. I know many of you have been following this channel because of game development, but I'm planning to branch out this channel to include also other creative endeavors that I'm working on. So I hope you will continue following me in this channel for more creative content. But one thing is for certain, once I do decide to work on my next game project, it will certainly be an original IP, and it will certainly be a bigger project that I hope to be able to launch on Steam and maybe make a little bit of money out of it. And once I decide what that project will actually be, you will certainly hear about it from me over here on this channel. So please consider subscribing to my channel if you want to support me and my creative endeavors. But until then, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time.